always been a high achiever. I've always tried to prove myself of being worthy and being good enough. And most of my life, this was definitely run by this whole story of I'm not good enough. So the most recent way that I've realized that this was playing out for me was my constant need to acquire more certifications. Constantly feeling that if I didn't get another certification, I wouldn't have the tools necessary to help my clients. Welcome to Empower and Evolve, the vortex of growth that you have been looking for. I am your host, Kat Tunnyberg. I'm a mindset coach for female leaders, and I am committed to helping you cultivate the mindset shifts that generate you wild success. Each episode, we explore ways to tap into your true potential. We face the shadows that hold you back, and we embrace the journey toward your most abundant life. If you love what you learn here today, then I invite you to share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Right, it's time to plunge in. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Empower and Evolve podcast. It's a new month, which means there's time for a new theme, and I'm really excited to be bringing you this theme. One of the most common things that I help my clients overcome is fear, whether that's fear of rejection, fear of visibility, fear of success, fear of failure, fear of the imposter syndrome. So this month's theme for the podcast is leading through fear. And each episode, I'm going to choose a different common fear that I have noticed among high achieving women who are growing themselves, growing their businesses, and really stepping into their full power. And this first episode is going to be on the imposter syndrome. And I'm really excited for you to hear about this topic because this is probably one of the most common fears I see among women. And this is one of the most common fears that I help women overcome, especially in my one-on-one coaching, where we can get to the root of the imposter syndrome and really start to take the necessary steps to make the changes necessary for you to step into your full brilliance. But let me rewind a little bit. First of all, what is the imposter syndrome? If you're listening to this podcast, it's first of all very likely that you've heard this term at least once before. And I still see it necessary for me to give you my interpretation of it so that you can make the most sense of this podcast episode and really gain some new tools that you can implement and work towards overcoming the imposter syndrome. First of all, what is it? The imposter syndrome is a psychological phenomenon that basically means that you doubt your skills and your knowledge, and you might have this fear of being exposed as a quote unquote fraud. So you are playing it safe unconsciously. Remember, most of these things happen unconsciously. 95% of our actions, patterns, and habits happen unconsciously. So it's highly likely that the imposter syndrome is also playing out unconsciously for you. And the thing is, even though you doubt your skills, you doubt your knowledge, and you might have this fear of being exposed as a fraud, you are actually competent. Like, among all of this inner talk that you might tell yourself about yourself, which is the imposter syndrome, it's actually very, very likely that you have all the skills and knowledge necessary to be competent and to be doing the things that you're doing. First of all, I want to give you some crazy statistics. I looked them up when I was preparing for this podcast episode, and I wanted to bring them up because I want you to see that you're not alone in this. So first of all, it's estimated that 70% of people will experience at least one episode of imposter syndrome in their lives. at least once. 70%. That is literally 3 out of 4 people experience imposter syndrome at least once in their life. At least once. And then there's another study that says that found that 66% of women have experienced imposter syndrome within the last 12 months, compared to only 56% of men. So it's more likely to experience imposter syndrome as a woman in comparison to a man. I mean, the statistics is not too different, but still, it's worth mentioning. Which is wild. 3 out of 4 people experience imposter syndrome. And the thing with imposter syndrome is that it will make us doubt ourselves and keep us from taking the necessary actions to pursue our goals, put ourselves out there, and really create the life that we want, create success like we want it, whatever success might be for you. Imposter syndrome will hold you back from actualizing that success because of the internal stories that you tell yourself that are unconsciously running the show. Like, just let that sink in. And I believe that imposter syndrome occurs because of the way that our society is built up. You know, we are always told to strive for more, to climb the corporate ladder. There's always this sense of competition, especially when we are going for bigger goals, because, you know, the whole thing, like, there's less space at the top and la, 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 la. So I believe that we are unconsciously being programmed to experience imposter syndrome within our lives, because no matter what we do, it's never enough. And this is also where the good old limiting belief of I'm not good enough really ties into imposter syndrome. So as I'm moving through this month into different fears, you will see that certain limiting beliefs are really deeply connected to these different fears that we overcome. So I believe that the limiting belief that is connected to imposter syndrome is the fear of I'm not good enough. No matter what I do, it's never good enough. And that, my love, is connected to perfectionism. So if you are someone who is constantly worried about perfectionism, then it's highly likely that you are actually battling imposter syndrome. And it's also highly likely that you probably have an underlying belief that I'm not good enough. The reason why I'm bringing all of this up is so that we can have awareness. Because remember my 3-step feminine success formula. Step 1 is awareness. Step 1 is awareness. We want to have awareness about what's actually going on, what is actually holding us back, so that we can make the necessary changes and work with our mindset and our energetics to then do new things and take new strategy, take new action to move towards our goals. So step 1 is awareness. This is why I'm recording this podcast for you, so that you can realize that, oh my God, these things are probably tied together. Now, I want to share with you a little bit about my personal experience with the imposter syndrome. And this is something that I've probably experienced my whole life. I've always been a high achiever. I've always, tried to prove myself of being worthy and being good enough and striving for more and all that. And most of my life, this was definitely run by this whole story of I'm not good enough, which for me is also connected to I'm not lovable. So the most recent way that I've realized that this was playing out for me was my constant need to acquire more certifications. Constantly feeling that if I didn't get another certification, I wouldn't have the tools necessary to help my clients. And I masked it under this belief of, oh, I just love to learn. And I just love to learn. But if I actually start to peel back the layers of the onion, I realized that it wasn't about the fact that I just love to learn. It was more about the fact that I felt I had to take more and more certifications in order to be seen as valuable, in order to feel like I could deliver the results that I wanted to deliver, versus actually, I have had incredible tools to help people with their health, their wealth, their mindset, their body, their nervous system, their unconscious mind. I've had these for a very, very long time. And the truth is, and this is, I really see this truth with my clients as well, is you only need to be 10 steps ahead, not 10 steps, 10% ahead of where your ideal client is right now. And it's actually the best if you have recently been through what they are going through, because you're going to be able to guide them through your own memory, through your own learnings. You'll be able to really relay this message in an easy way for them to understand. So we have this, especially in the coaching world, we have this belief that we need to have it all figured out in order to be of service for someone. You know, we need to have our perfect life. We need to have perfect health. We need to have figured out all of our beliefs. We need to be fully solid. Nothing can rock us. Fully healed, quote unquote, in order to be of service. But the truth is, and this is something I really learned in 2024, that the journey never ends. There's always going to be new levels for you to reach for. There's always going to be another level of uncovering something that is going on for you. The way that this has really recently shown up for me is I've been peeling back more and more layers of my own money mindset and my own money stories and where they started from and how I've gotten to where I am and what else I still want to do in this realm. And I'm literally like, recently I did some journaling on this and I was like, whoa, like I've never realized this. I've been working on money mindset since 2018. And here we are. I'm still peeling back new layers. And that is actually the beauty, because as we grow and as we evolve, there's always going to be new layers for us to unpeel and to discover. So I am someone who is dedicated to a lifelong learner. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm dedicated to a lifelong journey of learning. And my ideal client is the same. She wants to continue evolving. She wants to continue growing. And she wants to continue peeling back these layers because she knows that the more layers she peels back, the more capacity she creates for herself and for her clients. But back to my story. I was collecting so many certifications because I literally felt like I still wasn't able to deliver what I wanted to deliver. I don't know if I'll even remember all of the certifications, but I'll just list them now for fun. The ones that are coming back and I'm remembering. Yoga teacher, human design reader, menstrual cycle coach, master practitioner of NLP and hypnosis. I've done a separate course on hypnotherapy on top of that. Quantum healing practitioner, breathwork facilitator. And I feel like there's more. But these are the main ones. And it really wasn't until you've heard the story, probably if you've been on this podcast for a while. It wasn't until at the start of 2024 when someone was trying to come after me and basically said that I didn't have qualifications and I'm a fraud and I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. That actually someone like outside of myself questioning my credentials made me actually step into my credentials more. Because I was literally like, oh, here's another one. I have a bachelor degree in law. It actually made me realize, like, fuck that. I have so much knowledge. I have so much experience. This person claiming that I don't have credentials, fuck them. So it wasn't until someone outside of me, something that I was deeply afraid of for a very long time, you know, had this fear of being exposed. And then when someone tried to expose me, I actually was like, fuck you. I have all this knowledge and I have all this lived experience and I have years and years and years worth of transformational results that I've gotten my clients. So I was able to realize that fuck that. And I started to lean into my greatness from that experience. And I started to actually remind myself how freaking great I was. And one of the things that I started doing during that time was because I was really not doing great at the start of 2024. I was in a deep, dark hole. So something that helped me climb out of that and helped me really step into my power was I started reading one of my testimonials from my clients every day before I started working. Before I went onto social media, before I created, before I connected to my clients, before I did anything work related, I would read one testimonial. I have this whole Google Drive where I've saved all of my testimonials for my clients. And I still sometimes go in there and I'm like, holy crap. I have gotten people these results. I mean, it's a co-creation process, but I've facilitated this change. And it's like, oh, I'm freaking amazing. And if you are not yet in the place where you have lots of testimonials, then that's okay. You can start to lean into your own journey. And this is actually where you can start to practice the gap versus gain mindset that I've mentioned before on this podcast, where instead of looking ahead of you and constantly chasing the goal that you're going after and realizing that you're still not there yet, hence feeling like it's just impossible and you can't get there, etc. Instead, I want you to look at how far you've come. Instead, I want you to look back behind you, see where you started, see who you were back then. What were your beliefs? What were your actions? What did you look like? What did you feel like? How did you spend your days? How much money were you making? Who were the people around you? How were you feeling about yourself? And then look at where you are now. And I can guarantee you that you've made progress. Because that's what we do as humans. We grow and we evolve, especially if you're listening to this podcast episode. It's highly likely that you have overcome something in your life and you are on this continuous journey of evolving and growing and believing in yourself and continuing to step forward and being the leader and showing others what's possible. That's within you. So this is one of the strategies that you can allow yourself to overcome imposter syndrome is actually just reminding yourself how freaking far you have come. Like, how freaking far have you come? Just take a moment and think about that. What was the starting point and where are you today? And what's the difference? That alone, just noticing that can be a huge game changer. Another one is just the testimonial one that I shared with you. If you are in this line of work like I am, and you have testimonials, read them. Read them. This is what other people have said about your work. Read them. Remind yourself how great you are. And then the third thing that you can do if you are battling imposter syndrome is actually create an accomplishment list. And I want you to go back all the way to when you were born to where you are today and write down all of the things that you have accomplished over the years. All of it. Every single thing. Started walking, started dressing myself, learned this language, got these grades in school, did this. Maybe you did sports. Maybe you've moved. Maybe you've moved multiple times. Maybe you started a business. Maybe you've learned a new skill. Maybe you have completed university. Like whatever it is, like write down all of your accomplishments so that anytime when you start to doubt yourself, you can go and look at that list and remind yourself how freaking great you are. How freaking great you are. And if you're starting to implement these and you realize that there is more behind this, or you're starting to uncover some things and you realize that that you need some help, reach out to me. This is literally the work I do with my one-on-one clients. I help them overcome imposter syndrome so that they can start to create the business and the life that they desire. Because the truth is that every single one of us has something to offer. Every single one of us has a purpose on this planet, and we have a unique gift that only we can deliver in the way that we can deliver. And you only need to be 10% ahead of your client, 10% ahead, to be of 100% service to them. Let me say that again. You only need to be 10% ahead of your client in order to be of 100% of service to them. Maybe write that down somewhere. Fucking post-it note. You've got this. You have everything within you to make a difference. If you love this podcast episode and you got lots from it, please share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who might be battling imposter syndrome. Someone who maybe like me just keeps on getting more freaking certifications just to feel good enough. But the truth is that sometimes getting more certifications can actually be freaking overwhelming. Still to this day, I sometimes find it hard to figure out like what to call myself and all of these things. I have all these different tools and I draw on them at different times. And I'm like, oh my God, it would sometimes just be easier how I just had one thing. So if you know someone who is a collector of certificates, share this podcast episode with them. And remember, you're not alone. 3 in 4 people experience imposter syndrome over their lives. This is completely natural. And once you start to bring it into your awareness, you can actually take the necessary steps to make a change. Thank you for joining me on the Empower and Evolve podcast. I hope that today's episode has sparked a new insight, or perhaps reminded you of your own power to manifest change. If you found value in our time together, I invite you to subscribe and share this podcast with someone who might need a little reminder of their own magical power. It would mean the world to me if you could take just 2 minutes to review the podcast and help it reach more people. And remember, the journey of transformation is ongoing, and sometimes the most powerful step that we can take is to simply pause, breathe, and realign with our deepest intention. Until next time.